Hey everybody, Kris White with the American Battlefield Trust, and we're heading our way around Mobile Bay. And I thought I'd stop at one of the out-of-the-way cemeteries on the east side of Mobile Bay. We're over in Point Clear, Alabama. It's a cemetery that's actually tucked in beside Lakewood Country Club, as well as the Grand Hotel Resort. And it is a cemetery that has basically civilians in here, but inside of it we also have a Confederate section. There are other Confederates buried out here in these family plots that we're standing amongst, but this section specifically is for Confederate dead. Now, what makes it interesting is that these are many of the dead from the Vicksburg Campaign. Even though we're down here in Mobile, Alabama, we're seeing dead from the Vicksburg Campaign. How does this happen? Well, when these soldiers are evacuated down to the east side of Mobile Bay, they're actually put up in a large hotel called the Grand Hotel. That hotel, as well as Gunnison House, will be in this area, and that is what is going to help to take care of the Confederate dead down in here. And let's take a little walk in. So you would have these, I'm sorry, not the Confederate dead, but take care of Confederate wounded soldiers. Over time, these soldiers will pass away in the Grand Hotel as well as Gunnison House, and whenever they pass away, they need a place to bury them. So eventually they will bury more than 300 Confederates out in this area. And how do we know this? Well, first off, out here we have many headstones. Many of them are modern, but we have a burial plot that's been marked, but there are also at least 2 burial trenches out here that were found right around 1998. Ground penetrating radar will find 130 some odd Confederates in one burial trench, and I think 140 in another. So we have more than 300, or at least 300 or so Confederates who mostly had served in the Vicksburg Campaign, brought down here to Mobile, and passed away. Now, for the most part, because they're in a burial trench, they are unknown. And unfortunately, in 1869, the Grand Hotel, the first Grand Hotel, burned to the ground. And inside of the Grand Hotel were still the medical records from that Confederate hospital, and they went up literally in flames. So we lost those to time. But in the late 1900s, we now see ground penetrating radar come out here, and we are able to locate these Confederates. So if you get a chance to come out here, you can actually walk in amongst here. We have a Parrott rifle out here, monument, and we have some other really neat headstones of civilians as well that you can walk around the statuary that's out here. And you know, this is probably not what you would expect to find on the east bank of Mobile Bay. Many Confederate dead from the Vicksburg Campaign, but that just goes to show the import of Mobile and the multiple railroads that would come down through here, like the Charleston Railroad. You would also have the Mobile and Ohio Railroad. There are the Northwestern Railroad, I believe, is running out of here as well. So you have 3 major railroads that are running into here. And because Mobile does not fall until April 12th of 1865, this is a relatively safe place to bring the Confederate wounded from Vicksburg and other places down here to Mobile and set up general hospitals into the Deep South. Gary?
Yeah, I think it's really cool what you did there too, because here, you know, you come to this place, and first of all, note that, you know, the Civil War impacted the whole nation, right? But when you come into the zones of combat and whatnot, where you're in the immediate rear or something like that, is when you start to see these things off the beaten path, sort of out of nowhere. Secondly, you know, when you come to a place like this is my first time here, I'm glad I'm here, is that you're forced to ask questions. What were these guys from Vicksburg doing here? How did they get here? Well, Kris mentioned the railroads, okay? Why are they bringing them here? Well, late in the war, there's not a whole lot of other options behind the lines in a safe place, and they picked well, because Mobile will be, you know, so late in falling to the Union forces. So just by coming to a place like this, it's a cemetery, and, you know, of course you have some actual implements of war here as well. You're forced to ask these questions, which is one of my favorite things about studying history, is that you try to bring these pieces together, and Kris offhandedly just mentioned a couple of the reasons why they might have been here. So I'm glad you did.
Yeah, and it's a really neat place to come down to. It's one of the very well-tended places by some of the Sons of Confederate Veterans in this area, the United Daughters of the Confederacy. They take care of a lot of these cemeteries, as well as places like Fort McDermott, where we were not too long ago. So if you have a chance to come to Mobile, there's more than meets the eye than the Battle of Mobile Bay down at Forts Gaines, as well as Forts Morgan, which you should check out those videos regardless. But make sure that you take a drive up and around the bay, and that's what we're going to keep doing, is drive around this bay and make our way down to our next destination. So on behalf of the American Battlefield Trust, I want to thank Garry Adelman, Kris behind the camera. I'm Kris White. Thank you for watching, and thank you for supporting battlefield preservation and education.